Rutgers Scarlet Knights fans, we have some news. After the Pinstripe Bowl victory, the Scarlet Knights got more good news today. Athan Kaliakmanis has agreed to commit to Rutgers University. By all accounts, this was in the mix for some time, and just recently did it come out that Athan has, in fact, along with his brother Dino, officially committed to the Rutgers Scarlet Knights. He is a transfer in from the Minnesota Golden Gophers, famed team of the whole family in the movie Fargo. But if you don't know that movie, I'm sorry for the reference. You really should check it out. Athan is a native of Illinois. I believe he's from Antioch. He came out of Illinois as the third-rated recruit in the year that he came out. And he had kind of an interesting career at Minnesota in 2022. He started a handful of games, and he started 5 of those games in 2022. And that was when Kirk Ciarrocca was there. And in 2023, he went into the season with Minnesota as the starting quarterback, and had a kind of an up and down year. Minnesota had an up and down year. It was what it was. And his stats, so his stats under Kirk Ciarrocca, and I remember he wasn't playing, he wasn't the starter for all games, but his stats were 60 completions on 111 attempts for a 54.1 completion percentage. He threw 3 touchdowns that first year and 4 interceptions. And his completion percentage, as I said, was 54.1 for 946 yards. Last year, he completed 156 passes on 294 attempts for a 53.1 completion percentage, 1,838 yards, 14 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. So a significant uptick in touchdown production, a significant uptick in touchdown to interception ratio in his second year when Kirk Ciarrocca was not with him. A tiny click down in his completion percentage without Kirk Ciarrocca. And, you know, a lot of the speculation out there, and we know this is what happens in college football and in the pros. Coordinators, coaches, they have their guys, they recruit guys that fit their system, that fit the skill set, that enables them to best fit into the system that coach wants to run. And they have a tendency to go after these guys, to be more comfortable with these guys. And that's how these things go. Athan Kaliakmanis was a recruit of Kirk Ciarrocca's when Kirk Ciarrocca was at Minnesota a few years ago. Kirk Ciarrocca has now reached into the portal along with Greg Schiano and gotten a guy that Kirk is comfortable with, who knows Kirk's system, who's comfortable in Kirk's system. And, you know, Gavin Wimsatt, you know, while a Greg guy, and Greg was obviously involved in his recruitment a few years ago as well, you know, Gavin Wimsatt was more of a, and he came in that 2021 year, the end of 2021, when he should have been a high school senior. I believe Kaliakmanis came out that same year, but might have redshirted. Check me on that info if I'm off on it. But Gavin was a Gleason recruit, and Gleason wanted a spread offense with a dual threat run, you know, quarterback, and that was Gavin Wimsatt. And Gleason, we all know, is no longer with the program, so it makes sense that Kirk Ciarrocca goes out and gets his guy in Kaliakmanis. For comparison's sake, Kaliakmanis last year, again, 156 completions on 294 attempts. 53.1 completion percentage, 1,838 yards, 14 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. For comparison's sake, Gavin Wimsatt last year, 138 completions on 289 attempts, a completion percentage of 47.8%, 1,735 yards, 9 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. So obviously, you know, a bit more on the touchdown side for Kaliakmanis. Only about 100 more yards for Kaliakmanis. About 5 more attempts, but about a 6% better completion percentage for Athan. what you're seeing here is similar quarterback play, right? Statistically, anyway, these two guys have similar statistical numbers in the passing game. Kaliakmanis has a slightly higher completion percentage than Gavin does. Through both seasons, Gavin's remained in the 40s. You know, he rose from 42% as a freshman, where he only attempted 21 passes, to 44% last year and to 47% this current past year. Kaliakmanis started at 54%, went down to 53%. So Kaliakmanis is already starting above 50, which 50 isn't even really a good percentage for a quarterback. It should be more around 60 at least. But the adjusted completion percentage, which takes drops into consideration, which takes throwaways into consideration, has Kaliakmanis substantially higher than Gavin Wimsatt. Kaliakmanis is in the 60s when you take into account the adjusted completion percentage, whereas Gavin Wimsatt is still near the bottom of the Power 5 conferences with respect to his adjusted completion percentage. So that's something to take into consideration. Another attribute of Gavin Wimsatt's, though, which I think contributed greatly to the team's success this year, and which really, if you think about it, Rutgers fans for a long time, especially given the type of talent and the talent that we see in the tri-state area, especially in New Jersey, have long thought that one of the ways that you can circumvent some deficiencies in talent on the team is to get a dual threat quarterback who can use his legs to create opportunities in the running game and also to open up the passing game and just, make defenses have to account for one more piece of skill from the quarterback position. And when we went out and got Gavin Wimsatt, that was one of the attributes that he brought to the table, and people were quite excited about it. This past season, Gavin Wimsatt carried the ball 131 times for 497 yards. That's 3.8 yards per carry average and got 11 touchdowns. For comparison's sake, Athan Kaliakmanis rushed 74 times for 94 yards, only a 1.3 yard per carry average for 2 touchdowns. Now, to be fair, a lot of Gavin's touchdowns came in short yardage situations. However, he certainly accounted for more productivity on the ground than Kaliakmanis, and it's not even close. 3.8 yards for carry is close to 4 yards a carry. Kaliakmanis 1.3 is close to 1 yard a carry. Only 2 touchdowns with a long of 23. Gavin had a long of 80, and we remember that Indiana touchdown that really sealed the game. What you're doing here, what it appears to me that Rutgers is doing, bringing in Athan, is if Athan becomes the starter, and that's who you go with, it's sacrificing some rushing productivity from the quarterback position for better passing productivity from the quarterback position. But stats don't tell the whole story here. And I think the fact is that if you pay attention to Gavin Wimsatt, if you pay attention to how he did throw by throw, and the guys over at TKR do a good breakdown where you can see every pass that Gavin drops back and throws, he misses on a lot of throws, and he missed this year on a lot of throws that seemed like pitch and catch type plays. Guys were running open, and he's missing them high, he's missing them wide, he's missing them low, he's throwing behind them, and it has been an ongoing problem. You look at Kaliakmanis, and again, the adjusted completion percentage bears this out. Kaliakmanis is putting the ball on the money when the opportunity presents itself. When the play is there, he can make the throw. There's not as much of holding your breath for routine throws in an offense. But he's not going to be able to tuck the ball and run or be a threat to run at the same clip that Gavin Wimsatt is. Now, it doesn't mean he's not an athlete. It doesn't mean he can't run the ball. He can do it. But he's not going to do it as efficiently or as dangerously as Gavin Wimsatt's going to do it. And, I don't know that Athan has the same arm that Gavin Wimsatt has. And you see on some of the throws that require more arm strength to thread the needle at longer distances, it does appear that Gavin Wimsatt's arm is a bit stronger than Kaliakmanis and just natural talent. But that doesn't always translate into better quarterback play overall, because Gavin showed in many games this season, Gavin showed the ability to have, throw some balls, deep, moderate range, in a few different places that really, made you kind of light up and say, wow, this is possible. Look at the kid's arm. Look at his talent. Look at the potential in this young man. If he can reach his potential, along with his rushing potential, look what we could possibly do. But the fact is that Gavin Wimsatt never reached a level where he was throwing the ball with, that type of talent, with that accuracy consistently. He would throw an absolute dime down the sideline, and then the next 3 deep throws he engaged in that game or with the game after would be missed throws. He'd hit a beautiful throw in the corner of the end zone, but he might have overlooked a more open throw closer to the goal line. Or he might come back and miss a guy high, for a routine play that would have gotten us a first down. There were flashes, but never consistency. And you look at a player like Athan, and you see somebody who is not a world-beating quarterback, a serviceable quarterback. And let me say that, not taking anything away from the many young men who have come through Rutgers since Gary Nova. And you had some guys that had decent outings for us, I guess you could say. You had Chris Laviano, although not the fan favorite at the time, because the backup quarterback's always the most popular. But you had Laviano, you had Gio Rashino, you had guys who tried. But, Noah Vedral, valiant effort, a lot of heart, a lot of guts, a lot of great qualities in that young man. But let's face it, Gavin Wimsatt and Athan Kaliakmanis are better quarterbacks with more, with higher ceilings and better athletic skill sets coming in than any of these guys, really. And so we're already kind of head and shoulders above where we were when we were a fledgling program. But we're still not, equipped with the same guys, with the type of guys you want to be equipped with to get us to, a level of elite quarterbacking. And what I think is going on here, which is really the point of this podcast, is I understand there's a lot of sentiment out there, and it's probably correct, that a guy like Athan Kaliakmanis is not coming into Rutgers to be a backup quarterback. Most of these guys enter the portal, and their goal is to be a starting quarterback somewhere. Now, Minnesota is expected to get a transfer themselves in at quarterback. And, let's face it, Minnesota has Max Brosmer coming in, and they're excited about who they have coming in. So neither one of these guys, Kaliakmanis or Gavin, is a guaranteed shoe-in starter or a guaranteed shoe-in difference maker at the quarterback position. And I know some people don't want to hear that in Rutgers Nation, because you just want to be, either you're a Gavin fan, you think he's got potential and you think he can reach it by improving next year, or you've moved well off Gavin, which I think most of the fan base has, and you're saying, well, wow, this instant upgrade in Athan is going to get the program to a height we haven't seen and we couldn't see with Gavin at the helm. And I think the truth is, people don't want to admit this. They want to focus solely on the throwing, but, no matter how you slice it, in our victories, there were key throws that Gavin made, and then in our losses and our victories, there were key throws Gavin missed. And then there were key runs that Gavin made. You can't make up those stats there with over 400 yards rushing and 11 touchdowns, averaging almost 4 yards a carry. You can't evade the fact that his rushing ability also contributed to our success on the football field this year. So Minnesota's getting a transfer from New Hampshire, and they're excited about it. And so it's not as if Athan, was trying to be incentivized to stay at Minnesota, and he, deferred and defected to Rutgers in some epic coup here. He was being moved off of by the Gophers, and he came to rejoin his former OC at Rutgers. And I think, this is speculation, I think that what's going on here is based on Gavin Wimsatt not leaving as of right now, and based on the objective analysis of the statistics of these two players and the trade-off from rushing to throwing here, that these comparable quarterbacks are going to compete starting in the spring for the starting position. And I don't know that the competition will end after spring. If Schiano declares a victor and a starter after spring, you could still see Gavin Wimsatt, if he's not the starter, transfer out of the program. And I wonder if they'll announce a starter post-spring, or if they're going to take this to the wire through August training camp and announce a starter at that point. But I think realistically here, if everything is on the up and up, and I don't say that to negatively, cast aspersions on the coaching staff, but the fact is that we've seen it time and time again in football, that if a coach likes a certain player, likes their skill set, likes their fit for the offense, then the competition is never really a legitimate one. I don't know whether this is going to be a legitimate competition or whether Kirk Ciarrocca just wants Kaliakmanis because it's his guy who fits his system. And we will soon find out. Or we may never find out, right? Because one of them could win the job, and who knows whether it was legitimate or not. But I think at least what was said and at least what is expected by both of these young men, and I have no reason to think that they are under any false assumptions that Greg Schiano is a straight shooter who's always honest with his players and the people in the room. I think that as of right now, this is a legitimate quarterback competition between the two young men with similar numbers. I think similar ceilings. I think perhaps different floors. I think Gavin Wimsatt's floor as a passer may be lower than Athan Kaliakmanis because Athan has shown the ability to be a bit more consistent with routine passes than Gavin has, but with perhaps similar ceilings, where or maybe Gavin a bit of a higher ceiling because of his athleticism using his legs, but similar in the sense that, they're both developing players who have the potential to get up to another level and elevate the program. And I think if you plug Gavin in there and he plays at the same level that he played this year, you're not going to get much improvement, and you're not really getting legitimately good enough quarterback play from the position. On the other hand, despite what some say, I think if you put Athan Kaliakmanis, and that's looking at his stats under Ciarrocca the first year or his stats last year, you're also not getting what you need out of the quarterback position. Because even if he's hitting more of those routine throws to the tune of a 6% improvement to 53% or 55% or 4%, and then you're negating close to 500 yards on the ground, you're negating 11 touchdowns on the ground, and you're negating what defenses have to prepare for as far as the quarterback as a runner, but replacing it with what defenses have to prepare for in terms of dealing with a more accurate passer on, routine passes. You're kind of swapping out, 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. And so I think the true expectation here, and this is what Rutgers fans should expect, is these guys are going to elevate each other by competing throughout the offseason, knowing that this is each of their opportunity to lead what's going to be a formidable Big Ten team that just won a bowl game, coming off a winning season, looking stout on defense, looking like it has the Big Ten's leading rusher, an emerging powerful rusher in Sam Brown, a stable offensive line that has shown great improvement, and the winner is going to get to be at the helm of this team going into a season where we have tough opponents coming from the West Coast and the Pac-12, but we don't have to face the likes of Michigan and Ohio State next year. So the stakes are high, and I think what's going to happen and what people should expect to happen is these guys are both going to improve. And that's what you should want as a Rutgers fan. They're both going to improve, and the best player for the job is going to win the job and be at the helm. And in an ideal world, assuming nobody transfers and a starter's not declared after spring ball, which I find hard to believe they would declare a starter after spring ball for a few reasons. But the other guy will be a very formidable backup quarterback going into this season, which you're one hit away from needing your backup quarterback. And so I think it's the best of both worlds. If Gavin beats out Athan, you're going to get a vastly improved Gavin, and that's good for the program. If Athan beats out Wimsett, then you're going to get an improved Athan who's also already coming in is probably a bit of a better passer. And your offense is going to revolve more around the passing game. Now, with the running backs we have, I don't know that a drop-off in the quarterback's rushing ability is going to hinder the offense too much. But I would caution that, it's not just the productivity as far as numbers and end results that you're looking at when a quarterback can run. It's also how it forces a defense to account for that rushing ability. However, if Athan's able to beat Wimsett out, and I think both these young men are going to improve because just by virtue of getting another year older, just by virtue of continuing to hone their craft and develop, just by virtue of the fact that they are redshirt sophomores this year and are going to be redshirt juniors and thus upperclassmen, true upperclassmen in the athletic sense, I think they're both going to improve. So if you get Athan as the starter, you may not have to account for the same rushing productivity out of the quarterback position, but now you have to account for a heightened passing ability from the quarterback out of the position, and that's equally as important, especially considering that quarterback's job is mostly to pass in this day and age, although some programs have done very, very well with true dual-threat quarterbacks who are more of a threat running the ball. But overall, this is good news for the program. Overall, I wanted to sit down and give you guys an overview statistically and my true thoughts on the fact that I think these guys are, comparable. These guys are comparable. One is more of a rushing threat. One is more of a passing threat. But the numbers are somewhat negligible numbers. And, that goes for rushing, too. Athan had vastly worse numbers rushing than Gavin, but I don't think that's necessarily overarchingly indicative of the drop-off because Gavin's obviously being asked to run more, first and foremost. And second, some of his touchdowns came in short yardage situations near the goal line. And then Athan, again, while his passing ability didn't look so much above head and shoulders beyond Gavin's ability, the adjusted completion percentage and the tape shows that he is a considerably better passer than Gavin Wimsett at this stage in their respective careers. So you're getting comparable guys with comparable ceilings, comparable floors, comparable levels of productivity, comparable rankings of, who's the better quarterback in the current, pecking order of the Big Ten, who are going to come in and hopefully have an earnest competition, which will bring out the best in both young men, which will give Rutgers the best possible quarterback for the team, and also provide Rutgers with a formidable backup if all things go the way we hope they do. So at this juncture, you should just be happy that we brought a competent quarterback with starting experience and experience in our offensive coordinator system into the quarterback room. We have a more robust quarterback room. Remember, you have A.J. Sarace coming in next year, a highly touted freshman who's going to be developing and hopefully ready to take the reins in a few years and hopefully reaching his potential, which we all know is great. And then you have a Johnny Shepard who, I like as a player, and I thought he, in his little bit of flashes that he played, he looked like he had some promise too. So you're getting a more robust quarterback room. You're getting two legitimate guys with legitimate starting experience in this league, and there's really no downside to what's going on right now. I think if Gavin had decided to leave, or if Athan had shied away from competition, you would have had the downside of going into the season with just one of these guys and having to completely rely on them improving without a real legit competition. But now you have two guys with all the ability and all the possibility in the world of improving and taking the next step, and them bringing out the best in each other through competition. And I think that's an ideal situation for the Scarlet Knights, so it's always good to see. Guys, if you have not done so yet, please click subscribe. It's right here. We're trying to get to that magic 500 number, but I'll settle for 400 early in the new year. Let's get there. If you have not subscribed to this channel yet, but you like Rutgers content and you're interested in hearing more, please click subscribe. We also now have this show up as a podcast every time I record here, and virtually every time I record here, except maybe for just quick post-game reactions. We're going to post it on a podcast, which right now is only available on certain platforms, but in the coming days and weeks will be available on every single podcast platform, so you could listen to this as an audio podcast while you're driving, while you're running errands, while you're working, whatever. It'll be available on Apple, Amazon, Audible, all of those things. So tune in there as well. If you have not done so yet, click subscribe, and I will talk to all of you very soon. Go Knights.